This means a kingship is headed our way. Kingship?
Over $700 million. Henry Cavill, among other familiar movie faces, and 2026 release date is the biggest ever video game finally coming out? Well, did I get ya? Well, I do admit I did embellish a little bit of that title there. As today we're talking about Squadron 42, the other Star Citizen video game. Not the one where you buy an actual $1,000 spacey ships. Regardless, this year's CitizenCon showcased a few neat things, even if the live presentation crashed twice. Well, that bodes well. Alright, and for the context's sake, those that are not familiar to Star Citizen and its whole project and rigmarole that goes on with it, Star Citizen is a project for 2 video games. Crowdfunded since 2012, Star Citizen is the multiplayer aspect and Squadron 42 is the single player. And I think that's enough context for at least the basic understanding. The funding of $700 million goes for both games to be developed, and that includes also all the guest star appearances, including Henry Cavill, Gary Oldman, Luke Skywalker, and quite a few more. At this point, it's quite clear that Chris Roberts and his company is spending quite a lot of money on these guest appearances. This sort of a trend dates back to the 90s when Chris Roberts was making Wing Commander games, with Mark Hamill and quite the production value for the VFMs. However, today, because of the insane amount of funding, Chris Roberts can, let's just call it, afford invite a lot more people to rub elbows with. And that's kinda the thing with Squadron 42. Yes, we all like most of these actors, if not all of them, especially Henry Cavill these days, right? But let's not pretend that this is not something other than Chris Roberts just buying his way into Hollywood back again. That or buy the nerd street cred or some favors with space dads because, oh, it's a person we like and all that stuff. But honestly, the word needless expense comes to mind more than once. And speaking of that, there needs to be a bit more context laid down. So remember back in the day, there was this game called Freelancer, a spiritual successor to Wing Commander that Chris Roberts tried to make as the biggest space game ever.
Again, this is rumor, but it is corroborated by multiple trusted sources who are at Digital Anvil. It is alleged that Roberts used Microsoft game development money to fund the post-production of the already over-budget Wing Commander movie.
And trust me, we'll get back to the budgeting in just a bit, but first, another piece of context.
Squadron 42 is now feature complete and has entered its polish phase.
And this quote comes from the last year's CitizenCon. So in broad strokes, right now Squadron 42 is in the polishing phase. And clearly... yeah, it's missing a few things still. But anyways, for this year's CitizenCon, what CIG managed to present was essentially, I think my fellow creator Avenger 1 put it concisely.
I thought it was 40 minutes of cutscenes and 20 minutes of gameplay.
Even so, the stuff we managed to see in the first couple of opening scenes honestly was really impressive, really interesting to look at, and certainly, it wasn't without faults, even at the best of cases in the uploaded video, rather than the presentation. There is no denying that whatever Squadron 42 is being made into looks really nice, and the animations and of course the cinematic approach is very noticeable. I will have a lot more to say when it comes out and the story, and I'll pick it apart, but for now, it is just fun space nonsense. Now what's not so fun and games is the budget. See, Squadron 42 and Star Citizen is being developed at the same time on relatively the same technologies. And sure, we all like to see some familiar faces from the silver screen, even if it is just a simple cameo. However, at the back of my mind, and I'm sure a lot of fans as well, is the question of how much did they cost to take part in? Because let's be frank, these actors aren't cheap. There's more than 1, 2, or 3 A-listers was sunk into just getting these people to take roles. And I can't but reach for a simple argument that my fellow creator DigDat often says. I don't care about Squadron 42, I paid for Star Citizen. For years now, it's been clear that Chris Roberts is more interested in delivering the wing commander of the next generation. And more we see the development time and funding get sacrificed from Star Citizen's development to delivering Squadron 42, where Chris Roberts gets to rub elbows. And sure, it's not exactly the freelancers debacle that allegedly a portion of Videogame's development budget was diverted for the movie's production, but I also can't sit here and say that, oh, I haven't seen this move before, I wonder what it could be. The simple reality is that Squadron 42 is already overproduced. What really is concerning and sad is that Squadron 42 is being built at the backs of the multiplayer portion that is the Star Citizen. You know, Star Citizen accumulates its funding through ship sales for the multiplayer part exclusively at this point. And yet this year seeing Henry Cavill, even though I absolutely love the man, more and more in our faces we can see Chris Roberts funneling those funds for his passion project, rather than what he properly promised and majority of the players wanted and bought most of all. But hey, on the bright side, at least we finally get a number, 2026. Assumedly, it's an implied release date for Squadron 42. Whether or not that will happen, well, knowing what CIG often does, and that's a lot of delays and nonsense, I won't hold my breath. But certainly I will be covering it and indeed tearing the story apart, cause oh boy, there's something to say indeed. But regardless, whether it's stupid, fun, or maybe even good, who knows? It's only a part of the Star Citizen story. So, what about the rest of the Star Citizen? What news do we have for it? Honestly speaking, aside from base building finally seeing some kind of light of day, and a few more systems being named and showcased, at least in the slideshow way, and then mentioning about insurance, which still doesn't have a proper design, or... I'm still confused because they didn't say anything and everyone is... Anyways, it's just bizarre. Slideshow stuff all around. So when it comes, it comes. Until then, it's just plain words. Frankly, there's not that much. I'm personally looking forward to actually finished monster modes for flight mechanics, because boy oh boy, the bumper cars right now we have is crap, and anyways. Overall, this year's CitizenCon, honestly speaking, not quite as interesting or impactful as the last one, but hey, Squadron 42 at least looks rather interesting. Whether it will be, we shall see.